What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crawdad Lake. It is me, View Personal 102, here reading chapters 6 through 10 of Stronger Than Blood by ElliottGreen333. If you want to follow along with the book, the link is in the description, and without further ado, we will get started. So yeah. Remus woke up the next morning. A strange sense of hotness flooded him. He was not used to being in bed with someone else in it, but when that someone else was the person he loved dearly, he didn't really mind. His head stretched, moving away from Rowan in an attempt not to disturb him. He quietly released a yawn, fully waking himself up. Soon after, Rowan rolled over. He took his arms and encapsulated Remus in a hug, nuzzling his face into his brother's side. "Good morning to you," Remus joked, leaning down to place a delicate kiss on Rowan's head. "Morning," the prince muttered, getting up. Remus wrapped an arm around his brother, pulling his head onto his lap. He began stroking the prince's hair. Rowan hummed in pleasure. "Won't the seat notice you're gone? You've been here for almost 10 hours, Rowan pointed out. "The seat doesn't care, and neither do I. There's nothing worth worrying about when I'm with you, Ro." The prince flushed, forcing a chuckle out of the duke. Their lips met for a kiss before Rowan rolled out of bed. After a big stretch, he took Remus's hands, pulling him off the bed as well. An idea grew inside Rowan's head, making him smile as he looked at his brother's face. "Let's go out tonight," he whispered. "Like a date?" the Duke asked, eyes sparkling. "Yeah, just you and me, the imagination, around 7 tonight." "Want a little something?" Want to have a little something?" Remus joked, taunting him with flirty eyebrows. "Whatever you desire, my love," Remus laughed, kissing his brother's hands. As the two looked into each other's eyes, the knock on the door sent them jumping apart in fear. They quietly chuckled at each other's fear. "Guess I should head out now," Remus muttered, a slight coaxing disappointment in his voice. "Don't be sad, love. Remember, 7 p.m. tonight," Rowan said, pulling the two into a kiss. The Duke neatly accepted, already missing his love. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." With that promise, Remus sunk out of the room, leaving Rowan only with the memory of his brother left in his room. "You awake, Rowan?" The voice of Patton asked at the closed door. The prince looked down at his pajamas. They didn't seem too messy, but they definitely seemed as if he got out of bed. He patted them down his hair as he walked over to the door. Once he was all ready, he opened it. Sorry about that, Pat. I was in the bathroom," he lied, smiling through his silver tongue. "Oh, no worries, Kendo. It sounded like you were talking to someone. Is everything okay?" the dad asked. Roman's face foiled and red. He didn't realize how loud he was and his brother were talking. "Oh, just my little woodland friends, some birds, deer, bunnies, you know." "I didn't know you had woodland creatures," Patton gushed, his eyes full of childhood wonder. "Yeah, they don't come out that much. They're kind of scared of other people. Do you need something, Patton?" Rowan spoke, trying not to change the subject. "Oh, yeah, I was thinking that we should have a movie night tonight. Just you, me, Virgil, Logan. Maybe around 6-ish? Does that sound good?" Patton asked. "Oh, yeah, totally. I will totally be there," Rowan said, faking a smile. "Great, see you then." Rowan shut the door as the father figure left. He released a breath, not even noticing he was holding it in. The prince's mind was fluttered all over the place. How was he supposed to be in 2 places at once? He could be at the movie night for a while, but his heart wanted to be with his brother, the person he loved more than anyone. The prince came up with a plan instead. Once he settled upon it, he got to work. First things first, he took a shower. The hot water burned into his skin, making him feel alive in an odd way. He hummed a tune to his favorite love song, closing his eyes to imagine the world he'd create for tonight. It had to be perfect for Remus. Once out of the shower, he put on a plain white shirt, pants, and red sneakers. He slicked his hair back, getting a little fancy by putting on red lipstick and mascara. He poked his head out of his room, seeing if anyone of his friends would try to stop him from going to the imagination to step up his date. The way looked clear, so he made a dash across the hall. He snuck into the imagination's door, and the room lit up, welcoming him into the wonderful realm. He smiled, picturing the scene in his mind. The prince took a breath, waving his arm up like a conductor. The terrain around him responded. Everything turned into grassy hills with random flower patches. The sky turned dark blue orangish, miles of fireflies dancing in the night, lighting up the world. He created a small creek running in front of one of the hills Roman decided to set up on a small picnic on. The creek filled with koi fish, jumping around and making the place come alive. A classic picnic blanket fell atop the nearby hill. A wicker basket appeared next to it, filled with fancy bread, cheese, meats, and a bottle of red wine with 2 glasses for it. A tree sprouted behind the picnic, fairy lights hanging inside the tree. Finally, moon set in the sky, making the entire scene wrap together with a bow. The prince smiled, liking what he was seeing. Tonight would be perfect. It had to be. After everything Remus and him had been through together, the two deserved something like this. Roman saved the scene in his head, making sure he could recreate it when he comes back later tonight. He looked at his phone clock, examining the time. 5:06 p.m. Less than 2 hours, the prince smiled as he walked out of the imagination to get ready. Now all he had to do was survive the movie night. Chapter 7. Roman was finishing up his appearance in his evening ahead. He was wearing a button-down white shirt with fancy dark red tie. He chose black pants and shoes for his date, along with choosing a red rose as a corsage offering for Remus. He knew it wasn't prom, and it was a little cliché, but Roman was a helpless romantic. He only wanted the best for Remus. He slicked his hair back with one curl at the tip of his forehead. A grin appeared on his face, his heart skipping beats at the thought of tonight. Everything was going to be perfect. "You ready for movies, kiddo?" Penny asked through the door. The prince looked at his alarm clock, seeing the time changed to 6 p.m. "Yep, coming," he responded, reapplying his makeup and adding on some perfume on his neck. Satisfied, he walked out of the room, waltzing down to the living room. The smile on his face never left, as his friends chuckled at his performance. "You look awfully dressed up for a movie night, Roman," Virgil pointed out, only wearing a too-big t-shirt and sweatpants. Logan was wearing his regular outfit, and Patton was snuggle cozy in his cat onesie. "Why, can I not look fabulous for my friends?" the prince asked, taking a seat between Patton and Virgil in the middle of their large couch. "I mean, yes, but you only wear this particular get-up when something more memorable or spectacular than a movie night happens," Logan pointed out, using some vocab words. "Perhaps I'm just really excited," Roman shrugged, keeping an eye on the clock on the wall. He didn't want to be even a second late for his date with Remus. It pained him to be away from him for so long, let alone purposely missing out on him and his adorableness. "So what movie would we start with?" Patton asked. He was shuffling through the big box of movies they owned, trying to find some worth of a movie night. "Oh, I know!" Roman exclaimed, grabbing the movie box from Patton. Secretly, Roman had a plan. He knew of a movie that they could watch that would allow him to sneak out easily. The prince pulled out the movie, Peter Pan. "What? Why this movie? We watch it like every week," Roman groaned, putting his head back on the couch in despair. "How dare you insult a Disney classic like this, Virgil? This is Thomas's childhood, and I think we should respect it as such," Roman argued, sticking to the DVD player before anyone else could deny him. Logan pressed play on the remote as it began, and Roman's plan slowly came into effect. 40 minutes into the movie, Virgil, Patton, and Logan had fallen asleep. Roman, of course, was sat wide awake. He was enjoying the movie while waiting for the clock to strike 7 p.m. His plan had worked. By playing the movie the sides had already seen so many times, he knew the others would get bored rather quickly and doze off. Roman was proud of his twisted genius. When the clock changed, the prince delicately got up from the spot on the couch. He moved carefully as not to wake Virgil and Patton, who were the sides closest to him. Making out safely, he climbed the stairs, softly opening the door to the imagination and shutting with barely any sound at all. Like inside the imagination, everything roared to life with the familiar scene Roman had created earlier. All the fireflies danced as the fairy lights lit up on the big tree. The creek water made a calming sound with the bluish fish joyful hopped around. What a wonderful sight! As the prince walked up to a small hill housing their picnic, he could see Remus walking towards the scene in the distance. He looked absolutely gorgeous. The Duke was wearing a green spaghetti-strap tank top, capri pants, and black heels. His hair was poofed up in curls, while the gray streak in his hair swept to the side, giving him a daydream-style look. Roman met him at the base of the hill. Their eyes locked. They both heated up.
"You look incredible,"
Remus told him, pushing a few of his curls behind his ear. "So do you," the prince smirked, holding up the royal red corsage he brought his brother earlier. Remus gushed over his beauty as Roman helped him put it on. Their hands wrapped together as they trekked up the hill. The Duke seemed dumbstruck by everything his brother had put together for him.
"You did all this for me?"
"Of course, loved. You've made me so happy these last couple of days. You lift me up, make me feel important. You've helped me figure out what I was missing in my life. Turns out, it was you all along." Roman blushed, caressing Remus's face. They pulled in for a kiss, smiling halfway through it. As they settled down for the nice dinner the prince planned, Remus popped the wine bottle, pouring some for both of them. They snacked and drank the entire night, laughing at unfunny jokes, kissing and cuddling, even seeing who would catch the most fireflies.
"Oh, Ro,"
Remus hiccuped, laying his head on his brother's shoulder.
"I hadn't had this much fun since I went dumpster diving for dead frogs." "Thank you for everything."
The two kissed, enjoying each other's company. They were both a little tipsy, but a fun kind of tipsy. The prince snapped his fingers, a sudden slow dance music playing from seemingly nowhere. Roman stood up, holding his hand out for the Duke. "May I have this dance?"
"Duh,"
Remus responded as he got up. Roman led him under the fairy-light tree. The prince placed his hands on Remus's waist, while the Duke's hands were draped around his neck of his brother. The two slow danced for what seemed like forever. They just looked into each other's eyes, neither of them saying a word. As the song ended, they stayed tightly wrapped together. "I hope you had fun tonight," Roman said, planting a kiss on Remus's head.
"Pish, you're crazier than a baby to rabies if you think I didn't have fun tonight,"
Remus joked, getting a laugh out of his brother.
"I'll never forget it."
The two ended their night with a deep kiss, and Roman dipped Remus down. Both of them didn't let go, too deep in their kiss to care, till they heard a voice.
"Roman?"
Chapter 8. Both Remus and Roman's head perked up at the call of the prince's name. They went wide-eyed as Patton and his precious cat onesie stood in front of them. He looked distraught, scared, and surprised all at the same time.
"What are you two doing?"
Patton spoke again. Patton, we can't explain." Roman coughed, hands shaking and struggling to hold onto his brother much longer. Remus turned to his brother, heartbreak in both of their eyes. They messed up. They got careless. Someone knows now. The Duke buried his face in Roman's shoulder, salty tears forming in his eyes. "Why are you two together like this? You weren't supposed to be in contact with each other. Why are you kissing? Why are you holding each other like this?" The father sucked in a large breath. Are you two dating?
Damn it.
Damn right. And that's a secret you better plan on keeping to yourself if you want to stay alive, Remus threatened, storming over to Patton and grabbing him by the arm tightly. You're hurting me, Patton squeaked, obviously terrified. Remus! Roman called out, gaining his brother's attention. It seemed to be enough to snap Remus out of his deranged trance. He let go of Patton, awkwardly rubbing his arm in embarrassment.
I'm sorry, Patton,
the Duke murmured, looking down at the ground.
But please, you really can't tell anyone. We know that Deceit and you guys don't want us talking because... But we promise. We just miss each other. We need each other. I refuse to live without Roman.
Please, Patton. Roman jumped in. We need each other. Without Remus? I'm incomplete. I've always been that way. It only took a kick in the right direction to help me see that, Roman explained, taking his hand and sliding it into Remus. Patton looked conflicted. Obviously, he loved his kiddos. He didn't want to break up each other's love. But Logan would be furious should he find out himself. It was always a worry of his that the two would fuse again and send Thomas into a panic frenzy, especially now in his life when everything is going so well. The last thing Thomas needs is a creativity becoming one again and making him go crazy. The dad of the group took a breath, making sure he was calm before making any decisions he may regret later. I promise I will not tell Logan, Virgil, or Deceit, he announced, making both of the brothers melt in excitement. I can't let you guys be unhappy. What kind of father would I be? I trust you. However, please promise me you will not become one again. We can't take the risk. Not at this point in Thomas's life. Of course, we promise. Thank you. Thank you so much, Patton, Roman said, happily bouncing with Remus. Patton lightly smiled, still unsure if everything would turn out okay for them and the others.
Oh my, I thought you were going to separate us.
I wouldn't. Patton struggled to say words. It made the brothers freeze, giving worried eyes to Patton. Just don't give us a reason to, he mumbled, shuffling awkwardly in his cat onesie.
Trust us, Patton,
Remus said, walking over to the bothered side.
You have our word. You don't want to endanger Thomas. That's not why we're in love.
I know, kiddo, Patton smiled, making the brothers smirk as well. So how long have you two been a thing? About a month, Roman shrugged, looking at Remus for confirmation. I mean, we've been dating for a month, but we reconnected a while ago. We both just felt a part of ourselves were missing without each other in our lives. Aw, that's super sweet, Patton gushed. Remus and Roman held hands again, happily to have Patton's approval of their relationship. Well, I'll let you two get back to your date, but I'd come in soon if I were you. The others might wake up soon, and it'd be a little odd if you weren't at least in your room. Patton winked at the two as he stumbled down to the hillside, exiting the imagination. The brothers looked at each other again, happiness spreading on of their faces. That was so close. Roman laughed, placing a kiss on Remus's hands. What if the others find out? The Duke inquired, worried eyes meeting Roman's.
I mean, Patton found out. What if Deceit does? Or Virgil? Or worse, Logan? He'd foresee that we'd never see each other again. You know he would.
Remus panicked. Hey, it's gonna be okay. Logan's not gonna know. Patton's not gonna tell. We are gonna be careful. No one else is gonna find out, Roman reassured him, stroking his face gently. They came together in a quick kiss. And if anybody does, they're not taking you away from me without a fight. Remus blushed at that, letting a quick chuckle at the thought. After that, they walked down the hill. The scene behind them began to fade away as they walked out of the imagination. They peeked out the door, making sure no one would see the couple as they ran into Roman's room. As soon as they were inside, Remus pushed his brother against the door. The two made out against the door, neither of them wanting it to end. Neither of them slowed down or stopped. Only when Roman decided to push Remus onto his bed, the two took a second to catch their breath before turning to their expression of affection. After a while, Roman rolled over Remus, falling by his side. The two were red-faced and panting heavily. However, they were holding hands tightly.
That was amazing,
Remus moaned, realizing a few coughs. Yeah, it was. I love you so much, Roman said, looking over at his brother.
I love you too.
To end the couple's magical night, they decided to have their own movie night, starting it off with Peter Pan again, before continuing on to Mean Girls, 101 Dalmatians, the Steven Universe movie, and WALL-E. Cuddled together, the two slowly fell asleep. Chapter 9. 2 full months have passed, and the couple has never been happier. So far, Patton has kept his word. No one else has found out about the two. Not only that, but they've been more careful during their dates. Roman and Remus practically spend all their time together. Only when Thomas needs Roman or Deceit needs Remus do they find themselves apart. Even then, it's never for that long. Penn has had to cover for the two sides more and more often in recent months. However, the father of the group wasn't sure how much longer the secret could be held. Logan was getting suspicious about Roman, always complaining to Virgil and Patton about how he's never around anymore, how Thomas is slowly losing creative thoughts and motivation. The prince was not blind to this fact, however, so he came up with a plan, not only one that involved his love, but it would help Thomas in the long run, too. As he drew up the idea on a piece of print paper, a pair of arms wrapped around him, taking him by surprise.
Hey, love,
Remus greeted, giving Roman a sweet kiss.
what you working on, Ro?
The Duke asked, curiously looking over her shoulder. Well, it's sort of a surprise, he teased, watching Remus' face turn in disgust.
You know I hate surprises. Come on, I want to know.
The prince laughed as the Duke pouted. He grabbed his brother's hand, playfully smiling at him. Stop being so cute and maybe I'll tell you, Roman joked, immediately shutting Remus up. With that, he led the Duke out into the hallway. They ducked and ran into the imagination, giggling as they shut the door just before Logan walked up the stairs. The two rolled on the floor in laughter, not being able to stop for whatever reason. I love you, Roman muttered, taking Remus' hands again.
And I love you. But you're killing me with this prize.
The Duke whined again. Okay, so Logan has been saying lately that because we're both occupied with our commitments to each other, we haven't been getting as much work done. That, therefore, is affecting Thomas.
Are you breaking up with me?
Remus suddenly cried, taking a step back from his boyfriend. Heavens, no! I'd never do that. I love you, Remus. You mean everything to me. Roman apologized, pecking his love on the lips. What I'm saying is, we should go all out of here today. Make Thomas as Wonderland to get back his creative energy and motivation to create some more content.
Sounds like fun,
Remus said, beaming from ear to ear. Perfect, I'll start. With a wave of his hand, a giant castle appeared in front of the two brothers. Remus watched in wonder as it kept growing and growing and growing. Once it stopped, the gates opened. Inside was a small village with a bustle of people and a tiny market going on. Taking the brothers' hand, Roman took them inside. They both walked around, getting greeted royally by the people in the kingdom. It seemed so familiar to both of them, but it was only Remus who couldn't figure out why. They continued their advance to the market. Roman at some point stopped and bought a charm bracelet for his brother. It was beautiful, light green cubes between small sparkly diamonds. It made Remus's eyes light up, earring Roman a kiss on the cheek. Making their way up the mountain, they reached the main castle that looked over the small village. The sun was beginning to set, filled with deep oranges and reds. It was a beautiful way to end the day.
This is fantastic, Roman,
Remus told him, looking out at the closing market. Yeah, I just hope it did the trick for Thomas. Even if it didn't, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Roman said, rubbing his thumb over Remus's knuckles. The moon took its place in the sky, aligning itself perfectly over the brothers. The two looked up in surprise, taking note of how marvelous the moon gleamed. Remus sunk out his hand to his brother, making him blush. I believe it is my turn to ask you to dance, he asked. Remus flashed a cheesy smile, making Roman laugh and take his hand for a dance. Under the moonlight, the two swayed. The fume tuned, So This Is Love, from Cinderella. It fit the mood. Roman twirled Remus around, watching his silhouette glisten in the moonlight. When they met again, in the middle, they locked eyes. Their hands were locking together, hearts growing. They leaned their heads together, touching foreheads, closing their eyes, and just bathing in each other's light. The wind around them blew harshly. It was only too late when Roman opened his eyes and realized what was happening. There was a flash, and then they were on the floor. He opened his eyes slowly, feeling the sensation around his heart. Pushing himself to his knees, he shook his head. It made him a little dizzy, but once he regained his vision, he stood back up. Everything seemed slightly higher up. The market was almost completely done cleaning up. He looked at his hands. They were big and mighty, such different than what he was used to. A twinkle caught his eye. Glancing over, he saw the bracelet given to Remus, tucked away under his sleeve of his shirt. He grabbed it, fiddled with the jewels. How did this end up here? It was on Remus. Roman. He looked around. They were not there. That's when it hit. He grasped his clothes, looking down to see a gray print suit and a rainbow sash that draped around him. His boots were brown and knee-high, along with extra spiky mace in its holster on his belt. His hands moved to his face, feeling a little amount of facial hair riddled on his chin. His hair flicked up and spiky at the tips, not to mention the large crown on top of his head. He could only imagine the sudden fear written in the red and green irises. Romulus. Suddenly the castle began to crack and crumble. He turned around, seeing a big piece of castle fall towards him. Jumping out of the way, he knew he couldn't be up there for much longer. Instead, the king hopped out of the castle, carefully sliding down to the hill it was on and running out of the village. Roman's creation was falling apart without him being there to stabilize it. As the king ran, the villagers started disappearing into thin air as he ran by. The little huts and homes were crumbling to the ground, making it increasingly more difficult for the king to run. The gates to the kingdom were getting ready to close. Without a second thought, he grabbed the mace out of his belt and swung it at the gate. It stopped the gate from closing as he slid into place. The king got to the ground and slid under the gate, grabbing the mace and hearing the entire kingdom collapse behind him. The king stood on wobbling knees. It wasn't long until his eyes rolled back into its head as he glowed brightly and split apart. Both the prince and the duke laid on the ground for a few seconds. Their bodies were in pain after not being together for so long. Remus looked up first, crawling over to his brother.
Roman, are you okay?
He asked in a panicked cry, shaking his brother awake. The prince stirred, pushing himself up to gaze at Remus's worried look. Refused. The first thing that came out of Roman's mouth.
Yeah,
Remus giggled. They both suddenly felt the empty feeling again in their hearts, the feeling of being apart again. The two heads turned as they suddenly heard a sob coming from the imagination's door. There again stood Patton. His hands covered his mouth as an attempt to be quiet, but but obviously it didn't work. Without a word, Patton sprinted out of the room. "Patton, wait!" Roman called out, jumping out to try to catch him. Remus trailed behind, grabbing onto Roman's hand, panicking, tears in his eyes, as the two scurried after the fatherly figure. "Patton! Patton! Please, let us explain!" Chapter 10. "And that's how we ended up dating." Roman finished. The prince took a breath, looking over at Remus to make sure he was all right. He looked physically exhausted, which Roman was sure he was too. Virgil, Logan, and Deceit were all stunned, not only by the fact that the two were so in love, but that they were dating for so long under their noses. "So then, you never meant to fuse?" Virgil clarified.
"We don't want to hurt Thomas,"
Remus said, choking on a cough.
We just wanted the feeling of emptiness to go away. The feeling that was only being filled when we were together."
"And you two have always have this connection or feeling of abandonment without each other?" Logan questioned, face contouring in confusion. "Yes! It just took us a while for us to realize what was missing. Us," Roman mumbled, stroking Remus's hair and trying to calm him down. "Wow," Deceit mumbled. The snake put his elbows on his knees, bringing his fingertips together, diving deep into his thoughts.
"Are you mad at me, Dee?"
Remus started to cry again. No, not at all. I'm just having a hard time processing it all," Deceit said, removing his hat to run a gloved hand through his hair. "I am just as confused as why we were not informed sooner," Logan asked. Roman and Remus both shot him dirty looks, while Patton and Virgil looked at the floor. "Am I in the wrong?" "You know exactly why we didn't tell you, Logan," Roman started. "You tried to separate us to betterment of Thomas. But don't act surprised." "I never said that. When did I say this?" Logan questioned.
"You know it's true, Logie,"
Patton spoke up. He had small tears running down his face. He quickly wiped them off before taking a breath to speak. We stopped dating because of that reason. His emotions were getting ahead of his logic and vice versa. You didn't need to endanger Thomas' well-being anymore, so you told me we couldn't be together anymore." "Patton, that was almost 7 months ago," Logan protested. "Don't lie and say you didn't think about it every once in a while," Patton yelled, putting his face to his hands. Virgil comforted the father, rubbing his back and holding his hand loosely. Logan sighed, removing his glasses to rub his hands up and down his face. "You're right, Patton," he finally said. "I do think about that day 7 months ago. I did think about it fondly, but I can't deny that what happened." Patton slowly looked up at Logan. They turned towards each other, taking each other's hands. "Patton, I never stopped having a strong emotional attraction towards you. I never stopped thinking about the good times. I never stopped remembering the feeling of your hand in mine. None of it stopped. It just had to be put aside for a while."
"Oh, Logie,"
Patton guessed, releasing another sob. "I guess what I mean is..." Logan couldn't even spit out a sentence before Patton went into a kiss. It seemed to shock the logical side, but he melted into it. Roman and Remus looked happily at each other, holding out hope for their relationship. As soon as the two sides pulled apart, Logan was bright red. This made everyone laugh, including a little chuckle from Logan himself. "Well, I guess my hands are tied, aren't they? I can't say yes to Patton and then no to you two. How unfair would that be?" the side asked.
"So does this mean..."
Remus sheepishly questioned. "Yes, you two can love. But you know the rules. Don't fuse and keep Thomas happy." The brothers cheered as they came together for a tight kiss. Patton poked Logan in the arm, giving him puppy dog eyes. "Does this also mean..." Patton asked. "Yes, Patton. We can love too." Logan nodded, his cheerful Love celebrated with a kiss, bringing his hands to Logan's face with a happy smile. Virgil and Dissy looked at each other, both of them with grand smiles on their faces. They were happy for their friends, happy that they were going to work out. How in the world are we supposed to tell Thomas about you lovebirds? Dissy chuckled. Roman and Remus looked at Patton and Logan. They were uncertain, but broke into shy smiles after a while. I'm sure he'll figure it out in time. We are in his mind, after all. We can keep secrets from each other all we want, but only Dissy can withhold information from Thomas. Logan commented. He kissed Patton's cheeks, making him adorably heat up. Why don't we put this whole argument behind us now? Virgil suggested, sitting up with his hands deep in his pockets. Everyone agreed as he and Dissy struggled to set up a game of Mario Kart. It was a fun game to win down to after all the fighting and heart-wrenching stories. As Virgil, Dissy, Roman, and Remus started playing, while Patton and Logan cuddled in the corner on the couch, everyone was starting to calm down. Everyone was beginning to relax. Everyone was happy. Everyone was at peace. The night ended with Patton and Logan falling asleep in the corner of the couch. Virgil went to his room while Dissy disappeared back into the deep, dark side of the mind. As for Remus and Roman, however, they went to the prince's room. Together, the two snuggled into bed. The night was calm. The empty feeling was no longer there, and all the stress of their friends finding out about each other's was gone. I love you, Remus, Roman muttered, shutting his eyes. I love you too, Ro, the brother responded. In love, that is how the two would stay. Okay, guys, that is it, because I am dumb, and I thought there was 20 chapters when there's only 10. So that is the end of the story, but we'll be continuing with ElliottGreen333 in the next couple months. And I say that because all of her books are freaking amazing. And, oh my gosh, yes. So, this is one of the shortest episodes of Wattpad Read Aloud I have done in, a long time. This thing is only 20 minutes. I was only reading for, 20 minutes at least. Well, wait, no. This is a cutted clip. Never mind, it's been a lot longer. Never mind. Okay, so even though it's not 20 minutes long, I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have any suggestions for Wattpad Read Alouds, standard sides or otherwise, put them in the comments, or maybe how about I just make a Google... I'll make a Google thing for next week's episode when we start Elliott Green's next book. So be sure to donate to help with Corona and follow my Twitter. And all the links for all the good-o things, including Elliott Green's story and her profile, will be in the description below. So once again, hope you enjoyed. I try, I fail, let's go to sleep. Do your best.